Hello, everybody. This is Brandi with Woman Live, a tribe of ambitious Christian women going after everything God has said is theirs. And for the entirety of 2019, I am interviewing women who I think are phenomenal. I met them very randomly, and I did that on purpose because I know that as women, everybody has something that they're good at. Everybody has something that they want to share to the world. And so when I met these ladies, I had no idea what their gifting was, who they were as people, or what they would share with you guys. But when I met them, it was like, that's it. So when I met Miss Elizabeth Pampalone, the networking queen, I knew that she was going to share some networking tips with us, that she was going to tell us about her entrepreneurial journey and more. So tune in. She is our live guest today. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you for imparting, your wisdom and just who you are with the ladies. I know they're going to grab a lot from this interview.
Well, I'm excited.
As usual, I'm just going to dive right in. I have a list of questions, but I know they're going to change as you talk to me. So we're going to be super candid girlfriends today. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
So I'm actually a website designer and marketing consultant for small businesses, mostly women-owned businesses.
Okay. And you have been in business for quite a while. I want to say you've been in the website space for 17 years?
Yeah, 18.
18, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So how did that come about?
So I actually loved the library when I was a kid, and there was a class on HTML coding when I was 13, 14. And I said to my mom, you have to take me. I want to do this. And she's like, fine, I'll take you. And I loved it. I just was like in heaven. I thought it was the greatest thing. I thought it was really cool that I could learn a language that wasn't like a regular language. Mm-hmm. And I was in the room with all these adults. They had to do it for work or their business or some such reason that I was the only kid there. And I was just like, you guys, this is so fun. And they were like, oh, I just want to go home. They were tired. And the class was like 2.5 hours. I mean, it was long. And I walked away with just so much, I felt like knowledge, and they just looked so haggard. And I waited outside the door until they all left and made sure that nobody wanted any of the books that the librarians had set outside the door, like on HTML and coding and all that. And so when they all left, I made sure everybody had the chance to get a book, and none of them did. So I just scooped all of them into my bag. And I took them all home. And from then on, I read every single book that library received on coding, HTML, CSS, all that stuff. And then when I went to college, I told my parents, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And they looked in some reference guide that told you how much you could make for that career. And they were like, okay, you'll be fine. Go ahead.
Like, how long do we have to support you with this career? Can you support yourself? Smart parents. So, but I love that you actually said, I'm interested in this class, and then you took it a step further, took all the books and decided that's what your career was going to be. I was not that intentional as a 16-year-old or 14 or whatnot. So I love that you did that. So now that you have gone to college and you have majored in, what was
programming, web programming.
Programming, okay. Yeah. So then what happened?
I got married. I got a full-time job. This was right out of college. I only went 2 years. So I'm 20 and I get a full-time job. I'm a software developer. I'm married, and 3 months after being married, I get some papers served to me at my work, filing for divorce. My husband filed on me. Yeah.
3 months and 20 years old.
Yes. He had another girl on the side that he met at his work. And about a year after being served, we had the finalized divorce. And I pretty much was left with nothing. I mean, I had spent all of my money paying for things for him, and, the whole, that whole deal, the lawyers and all that stuff. And so he had a, big inheritance, but I got none. I was just left with, okay, girl, start over, And my parents were like, we're moving to Florida. And I was like, okay, you have fun with that. And they said, no, you're coming with us. You have nothing here. And they basically dragged me kicking and screaming to Florida with them from Ohio. So yeah.
Now, if I recall correctly, you made a name for yourself in Florida.
I did. I came here with my parents and I was just so like, I am moving out. You guys can't keep me here. I'm going to do my own thing. And they're like, okay, well, you don't have a job. And my mom said, well, you need to do something. Like, you need to get out. And so I said, well, I don't have any, like, what am I going to do? I'm not going back to software because I hate it. I didn't hate the programming part. I hated like the being in a cubicle part, which, I couldn't stand. And it reminded me of all those bad things that I had just come through. And I was like, no, can't mentally do it. And so she said, well, you need to just pick 2 things you like and just do those 2 things. Like, make yourself a job, like, do something, girl. So I said, well, I like old people and I like computers. So she's like, well, where those 2 things exist together, you just go, you find a job. And so I started cold calling all of the senior centers in the area. And I ended up actually getting a job as a computer teacher at one of them. And they were like, fine, you can come in, $15 an hour. You can work 6 hours a week. And I was like, sounds good to me. And I made the curriculum. And then another senior center heard about me and I started teaching there. And all these older people had these big desktops at home and they would come in for these classes and these computer labs and they'd say, well, my computer doesn't do this. And I was like, well, I'd have to see yours to tell you like what's wrong with it. I can't like diagnose it from here. And they're like, well, just come over to my house and fix it. I'll pay you. And I thought, well, they're old people. Like, what harm could be done? Like, I'll just go to their house. Like, I don't know them, but I'll go to their house, 21 years old. And I would go to their house. They would pay me hourly, more than I was getting paid to teach. And so I kind of made this little job. Like, I would go to teach at the senior centers, get clients from those people, and then go to all their individual houses and fix their computers whenever they needed it. And it was pretty much constantly. And then they would tell their friends at their country clubs and, so kind of went from there.
That's genius. Genius. Now, so the one thing that pops in my head, because we're all, all the ladies are watching, and we range in age from about 25 into our 40s. Yeah. So hiring a 20 or 21-year-old, that seems just like they seemed very innocent to you. That seems right. Very innocent to people.
Right.
But now when you have a 35-year-old woman and you're calling around and you're saying, hey, I want to teach a class, sometimes that doesn't look as good as it does for a nice young 20-year-old. Yeah. So what would you say to the older women who are attempting to create their own jobs and they're just cold calling?
So cold calling is very specific, and I hate it. I don't recommend it to anybody. But there's some instances where you can cold call. And if you're a little bit older, like you said, when I cold called, I was just like, do you have a job for me? Like, do you have a computer lab? Can you just pay me like $10 an hour and I'll come teach? Like, I was just reaching. There was nothing there, and I was like making it something, like just saying, hey, is this available? Would you mind paying me money for this? And so it was more of a throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, which I don't recommend anybody. And like you said, it was more innocent, like, okay, she's 20, what harm can she do? She's in a computer lab, we'll watch her, Right. But like, if you're a little bit older and you have more experience than I did, because I didn't have any at that point, I was making my experience. Then I feel like you have to, if you're going to cold call, you have to come at it from a place of authority, and you have to be confident enough to do that. And that is very difficult, even for me at my age. I'm in my 30s, and I don't have always that confidence to cold call. And so I feel like things like networking, where you can get a soft, like a warm introduction, you can meet people, cold meet people, like just say, hi, how are you? And what do you do? But you don't have to like cold sell them on something or cold make something happen. So then you have that warm introduction, and then they say, oh, I own a senior center. And you're like, oh my gosh, I actually teach computers to seniors. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, we have a computer lab. And then you have this warm introduction, but that's like maybe through networking, not just cold calling going, hey, do you have a computer lab? Can I teach in your computer lab? So I feel like if you have more experience, you have to come at it from a place of extreme confidence, almost like overt confidence, because you have to show that. Even if you're shy, even if you're introverted, you have to kind of push that out there. And that can be really, really difficult. So I don't really recommend cold calling if you don't have to, but I recommend like networking to kind of maybe ease you in a little bit better.
So that was a great distinction, though, the warm introduction and not the cold selling. Or no, you said the cold introduction. So I don't know you, so I'm just going to say, hey, what's up? My name is Brandi. What do you do? And this is what I do. But then the sale is more of a warm sale because now you have some sort of foundation. That was beautiful. I love the way that you just described that because, like when you have something you're super passionate about and you don't really have a lot of experience and you're just trying to like get some experience so that you can be that authority on the subject. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a conundrum. It's like, what do I do first and how do I do this? So networking seems to be the key.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And you're the networking queen.
I am. Okay. I didn't wear my crown, but I do have one.
Yes, you get to see the crown today, but that's okay. We'll just put a little imaginary one on you. So tell me how you became the networking queen.
So I actually did not know anything about networking until I had owned my business for about 4 or 5 years, actually 4 years. It was something that I was very blissfully unaware of, I think, until I met some more business people. So when I was working at the senior centers, I then moved into working at the community colleges and the education centers at like high schools. So like community education, night classes, that kind of stuff. And I met a lot of business people there because that's what they were doing. They were going to these really inexpensive classes to just gain some skills so they could either do better in their jobs or do their own thing and be an entrepreneur. And so they were all like, oh my gosh, you have to go to this group. You should be at this luncheon. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? So I got invited to a couple and I was like, this is amazing. I get to meet 20, 30 people in one room, tell them what I do. And obviously if I meet someone I can sell them, like I could win them over. And it was like putting all these clients in one room for me. It was just perfect. I was like, and I get to have lunch and I get to talk all the time. So this is great. And I realized really quickly that it was hard. It's a lot harder than it looks. And even though I'm super outgoing, it was even hard for me to kind of break through some of those cliques and things. So I started going to networking events and I thought, if I'm going to do this, I have to go to a lot because people need to know who you are. And I need to make sure that I'm going to the right ones, but I didn't know what those were until I visited them all.
Right.
There's like 3,500 events in my area a month. So there's a lot. And I thought, I wonder if somebody could network 3 times a day, like Monday through Thursday-ish, sometimes on Friday. And I looked it up and it was true. There was a breakfast, lunch, and evening event pretty much every single day of the week. And of the whole month, like every day. And so sometimes there was some on Saturday, sometimes they were on Sunday. And I was like, I want to be one of the most well-known people in my city. And so I decided for 1 year, and it kind of morphed into this. It didn't really start out initially like this, but it kind of, once I started in on it, I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I'm doing. For 1 year, I went 3 times a day. I networked 3 times a day. I spent a lot of money. I did eat a lot of food. And I did meet a ton of clients though. I met so many people, whether they became clients or not, later, eventually a lot of them did, which is really cool. And so I wanted to become one of the most well-known people in my city. And by the end of that first year, I really was. And then to solidify that, I was like, well, I have to run a group now. I've been to all these groups. I know what's good, what's bad, how to run one, how not to run one. And I can do this. And so a girl had me ready to speak for November of this 1 year. And I was my first speaking gig. I was so excited. I was like, I can do this. And the day before she cancels. And she's like, no one's going to show up. We're down to 0. No, nobody even responded. So we're just canceling it. And I was like, no, this is my turn. Like I waited for this. And so I told her, I said, well, are you done with this group? And she said, yeah, I'm pretty much going to close it. And I said, well, can I have it? Because I will do something with this. Because it's a ready-made group, but I'll just fix it, right? So the next month was December, which of course is the worst month for networking because everyone's busy. Everyone's off doing their own thing, kids, Christmas, all that. And I had 17 people show up to my networking event. And I was like,
17 people in December.
Yes. And I thought, okay, against all these odds, I can do this every month of the year. And so from then on, I started taking over all these networking groups that I realized were what I call dead and dying. they either had no leader, the leader was AWOL, the leader was like disgruntled, like whatever, I don't care about this anymore. And so I was like, I'll take your group, rebrand, revamp, send emails, market it better, then pass it on to a member who is really involved. Rebrand, regroup, like do the whole thing. I did it 13 times. And at one point I was running them all at once. For about 2 years, I ran them all simultaneously. Every month I ran 13 meetups.
So what was your secret sauce for, bringing these groups back to life? Was it just the fact that you were more enthusiastic about it? Were you bringing in guest speakers? What were you doing?
So rebranding was huge. Branding is my passion, and I think that every person should have a brand, whether they have a business or not. I feel like they should have their own brand, almost like an online resume. It should just have your own thing. And I felt every group should have its own unique prospect that it's trying to reach. It shouldn't be the same as another group. Yeah, there could be multiple women's groups, but each of those women's groups should have its own unique way of doing things. And so whenever I would take over a group, I would create a different agenda. So one women's group I took over was a lunch, and I liked it that it was a lunch. It was one guest speaker would come in for like 20 minutes, 30-second introductions. It was $5 at the door. Like there was a pattern it had already established. And I thought, this is a great pattern. Well, I raised it to $10 a person. I added a few other elements. I also added a spotlight speaker, which got to speak a short amount of time, but not as much as the long guest speaker.
Right.
And then I would bring in people. I'd have people from the group, agree to speak. Then I took over another women's group, and it had no agenda. There was like literally nothing. And I said, okay, fine. We're going to do twice a month instead of once. It's going to be first meeting of the month is going to be educational. The second meeting is going to be a spotlight speaker, just like we were doing before, with a person to tell us about their business. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of educational, but it's more business selling. And so I would go back and forth every month, and that would be 2 meetings a month. And some meetings were more well attended than others, but that was the agenda for that meeting, and people liked it. Excuse me. So it really, like, I tried to give each one its unique thing.
Okay. So I think at least what I'm hearing is the consistency. And I think that's where a lot of things fall short. Even with the networking, you mentioned, I'm going to do this for a year, or I'm going to do this 3 times a day. Or even in the very beginning, you were like, I'm not going to know anybody, and they're not going to know me if I'm not at least going to the same meeting every month. So I have to make sure that I'm making this thing intentional. Yes. And I think that's great for the moms that are listening, the wives, the career women, all of the above, because a lot of times we'll start something and then it's not really picking up the traction that we want, and we'll quit. And so consistency and perseverance is definitely going to be something that we have to implement this year in 2019 to see our goals come to pass.
Absolutely. And that is definitely something. Whenever I coach anybody on networking, I say, you have to commit to go to that meeting 3 times, at least 3 times. And that means that's a 3-month commitment usually. Sometimes they're weekly, so you can get away with a 3-week commitment, but mostly it's a 3-month commitment. And if you're not willing to put that in your calendar and set aside that time to invest in those people 3 times, how will they be able to be willing to commit and invest in you and give you their money?
Yeah, right,
So
right.
That's a huge thing. I mean, you're asking people for their money, which is one of the hardest earned things that they have. And so, you have to be willing to commit to them so they'll commit to you.
So you hear this term time ninja a lot in the productivity world. And I was listening to some interviews with you, and every single interview, you are very much about your time. Even in this interview, you were like, so it's going to be an hour and I have to do this. So can we do this? Like, you're very timely. And I love that. It's so professional. And you're not like a bee with it. You're just like, can we make it work? So my question for you is, and I know you read a lot of books and you're just very like full of resources. So how do you navigate being very timely and not burning out and then like having a week on the couch?
Okay, so a couple years ago, I did an experiment. And I encourage everyone to do this experiment because it is super eye-opening and it will really kick you into gear in some of the spots you may not have gotten into gear yet. So I was feeling like I was taking a ton of meetings and phone calls and pouring myself into people and giving them advice. And like, even just before we did this, I just spoke with some girl for 15 minutes and I felt like I was just pouring in. And she was just like, okay, thanks, bye. Like, and so I still get some of those sometimes, but I felt like I was having these months, like not just single phone calls, but like months of this. And I didn't feel like I was getting any business back from it. I'm like, what am I doing? So I thought, okay, I'm not going to change anything for the month of January. And I just went through my calendar at the end of the month because I write everything in my calendar of everything I do, every phone call, if I, 15-minute phone call, whatever. I wrote down everything. And basically like a daily task log of all the people I spoke to, how long I spoke with them, if I went to meet them somewhere for coffee, all that stuff, how much I spent, all that. And then I highlighted all the people in the calendar that actually brought me something monetarily, some kind of resource where I gained something from the interaction. It didn't have to be money, but most of the time it was better if it was money. So I looked at all that and I had spent 80 hours in meetings for the month. Wow. That is half the month in meetings. That's 2 weeks of 40-hour weeks in meetings.
What'd you get back? I knew it.
And I thought, there is no way. It has to be a fluke. It's January. People are starting up. Like, I'm going to do more meetings in January because that's my busy time, right? Or should be my busy time. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, February, still not changing anything. Let's see how it goes. Short month, 89 hours of meeting.
And still zero.
It was a little better,
okay.
But it was like maybe one client.
Okay.
And it wasn't the law of, 10 to 1 and all that crap. No, nothing like that. It was just nonsense. And I thought, what am I doing wrong here? Like, why? I want to help people. I want to talk to them. If I don't talk to them, how can I get to know them to have them make them my client? Like, there has to be something going on. So I said, you know what? I'm going to have, and when I realized that all those times, a lot of it was me letting people pick my brain for nothing. And whenever somebody says to me, I'd like to pick your brain, I immediately go, this is the paywall. You must pay. I'm sorry. And it's not to be mean. It's just to be like protective of my time. So I said, every Friday, I will be in my office because I had a physical location at that time, or at a Starbucks or wherever you want to go. Like, this is kind of like the second part of the experiment. I went to my office and I said, from 10 to 12, you can come in, you can call, you can contact me in some way, and I will talk to you about whatever you want. Your cat, kids, your business, whatever. You get 30 minutes. There are 4 slots. You can sign up or you can walk in, but I can't guarantee if you walk in, you're going to get a slot. I only did this on Fridays, and I only did it from 10 to 12. I was going to be in my office anyway working, so I was just there, and if somebody showed up, I'd stop for 30 minutes, talk to them, and then go back. First person comes in, booked the first appointment. Excuse me. They come in, they sit down, they're talking my ear off. 30 minutes goes by, and I'm like, oh, there's someone at the door. There was literally another person like, my turn. Who's in there? And, excuse me, it was the 30 minutes. So that's your free 30 minutes. Bye. They were like, but I have to sign up with you. Pulled out the contract, gave them a pen. They signed. I just made more money than I'd made in the past 2 months. And then they walked out. They were super happy. They were super excited. The next person came in, and I signed another smaller contract. It didn't happen every time.
What was the difference? Was it the fact that you were not readily available? Is that what it was?
I think that's part of it. I also think it was kind of me putting that boundary up and people realizing, oh, she ain't playing. Like, she is going to push me back. She's going to push me out for the next thing if I don't produce. Like, I am here for this time. And if I don't help her in some way that she's helping me, then I'm done.
Yeah, I want more Elizabeth. So I gotta wait. What do I do?
Right.
Hold on. So scarcity, and I hear a lot about that. I was listening to a book. Oh my goodness, it's like the best coaching book I've ever read, and of course I can't think of the name of it. And that's what they were talking about. Stop this pro bono stuff. Like, if you want to have a time or even give to an organization, so many hours a month, then great, feel good about it. But the whole, I can't have a business if I'm not constantly giving away things for free, that is going to leave you nowhere.
Yep.
And even you were saying in an interview about when you don't charge enough, you mess up your industry or something like that?
Yes. So I've had people that have done like $99 websites. I don't charge $99. I mean, come on, that's barely a living wage. It's like $2 an hour to build a website. And it's not possible to sustain. And so then when someone else says, well, so-and-so can do it for $99, it's just a website. Well, one, they don't value what you're doing, but at the same time, it makes you look like you're charging too much when you're not, and you may actually be really reasonable. But compared to $99, I can't compete with that. There's no way I can compete on price. And so really it goes back to knowing your value. And if you know your value, you won't undercharge. You may tend to overcharge, which kind of leads to another thing. Like there's arrogance and there's pride and there's a bunch of other stuff. But there's a way to find what your industry average is and to say, am I worth that industry average? And if you feel like your experience doesn't warrant that, because some people don't have the confidence to ask for that much, you can start lower and just don't start at the bottom of the barrel saying, charging $99 for a service that really should be $1,000 plus, or $1,500 plus. Like that's the starting point. So knowing what your worth is, knowing what the industry average is, and kind of finding somewhere in the middle so that you're being paid what you're worth, but also I've had some people though that have, I charge $3,000 for a website and they are total beginners. And I'm like, no, honey, you don't. Like, that's not where you are. You're not there yet, And someone actually said to me the other day, they're like, well, how do I make money like you? And I said, well, you got to start somewhere and then you got to ramp up to it. Because I didn't just get here. It's been 12 years, So it's definitely a process, but you do have to start somewhere, but without being, the person who's kind of dragging the average down.
Right. Oh, that's good. So you don't want to be that reminds me of a book where it talks about the person that everybody knows in the office is always late. And it's like, you don't say anything, but it's like, yeah, they're not, they'll be here in another 30 minutes. And you start to expect that kind of thing. So being the person that drags the average down, I like the way that you put that. And it makes you think of like, do I want to be the person that it sounds like, ooh, I'm going to be so good because I'm charging less and I'm going to get more clients. But in all actuality, people are devaluing the work and the education and my time. So it's not really as big of a win-win as it first seems to be.
And you can do specials and you can be like, I'm going to do a discount and now it's $99. Like to like gain interest and things like that. But it should be, how those coaches do, right? They're like, oh, this is $97, Brandi. You have to buy it now because it's going to go to $657 next week. Like you can do things like that. There's sales tactics you can use, but that's the reason it's a sales tactic. Like it's for sales. It's not so that you can say, I'm cheaper than everybody else. You should buy my stuff. And then, like you said, you bring it down, the average.
Right. Okay. So ladies, we got to get our confidence up. We got to get our value up. And we have to realize that being the cheapest person out there is not always, is not a winning situation for them or for us, really.
It's not about price. It's about cost.
Okay, wait. So break that down. What?
So price is a number and cost is the entire experience and what it will cost you in time and money and emotional, angst, in brain power, in energy. So it's not about price, which is a number. It's about the cost. So if someone does a $99 website for you and you end up having to DIY it yourself every weekend for 4 weekends in a row until it's done, that's a high cost. That's time with your family. That's, time you doing things you need to, or going to a networking event you need to, or being at a conference or whatever, right? But the price was so good, $99, but the cost was very high. So
tweet that, tweet it. That is so good. You know what? So the price of coaching, because it's sometimes it's like, ooh.
Yeah. But
the cost of what you're losing, what could my life be and what is it right now? And is it worth, and a lot of times it's worth so much more than what you actually spend.
Yeah.
Because you're getting the peace and
then the cost is higher than the price. Yeah. Because it's in a good way though.
Right.
Like,
in a good
way. It's a positive. Like you're paying in the red and you're getting in the black. That's huge. So it can be a negative thing, like you're losing something. The price is, how much are you losing for the price? But it also can be so, like, the cost is so much more, and I'm gaining this for this price. That's not so much.
So that's a whole mindset shift that you just brought up, Elizabeth. And I noticed that you do that a lot as well. So one of them was, if you are an entrepreneur, you should have a home cleaning service and a masseuse.
Yes.
Can you tell us why we should have those things?
So I don't know about you guys, but I'm big on trades. If I can help another service professional and they can help me back, it's a great trade. I don't always do trades, but when I find it is like beneficial on both sides, then I know that it's the right thing. And sometimes people say no, which is fine. But I actually had, I told my husband, I was like, when I feel like I've made it, even though other people are like, oh, you've made it, you're there, whatever. I was like, when I feel like I've made it, then I will get a house cleaner. And he said, that's fine. Because he knew that when I thought that I made it, we would definitely be able to afford it. Because I have very high standards for myself. And so I finally, 2 years ago, I got a house cleaner. And I really looked at the cost of what it was costing me to clean my own house. Mm-hmm. And my mom thought I was crazy because she taught us to clean the house when we were like 7 years old, my siblings. I have 4 siblings. I'm the oldest of 5. And so, like, she was like, you should be able to clean your own house. And I said, but Mom, look, I make $100 an hour at the time. And I'm spending 3 hours to clean my house. It cost $75 for someone to come in and clean it in an hour and a half while I sit on the couch and write emails that are making me 10 times that. Mm-hmm. So where is the ratio working that I clean the house and take Saturday, Sunday, my weekend with my husband, with my friends, with my family to do this thing that I already hate to begin with, like that I don't like doing. And she was like, well, when you put it that way, and I thought, exactly, because my hourly rate, that's me working. I'm still working. I'm not doing anything fun, like spending time with my family. I am working, doing housework. And so that's something that I was like, definitely the cost and the price are totally in alignment. Like I can totally do this. And so when we had enough money that I could comfortably do it, I got a house cleaner. And then the masseuse thing is, we don't take care of ourselves enough. We don't stop. We're going. And I'm definitely a workaholic for sure. And I noticed that being at the computer all the time, you get like this, and you get neck pain and shoulder pain and back pain and all this. Oh, it's awful. So I went to one of those massage places, got the monthly $50 thing. And every month I get to go at least once, and I have to because I have to use them. So I go at least once. I schedule in the calendar, and it is usually, sometimes I'll do it on a Saturday or something, but usually I do it during the week, like during the work week, because that's part of me working, because I am actually taking the time to lay there on that table and 1, be relaxed, and 2, give myself time to think, because we don't sit and think. There's no time for us to sit and think. And that's when you're most creative. That's when your most creative things come out. And so when you solve your problems, that's when you're sitting and thinking and being quiet. And so that was one of the few times that I knew that I could sit in a silent room where the person would not have to talk to me if I didn't talk to them first. And they wouldn't be bothered by it. And that I could actually think about stuff and be creative and solve problems in that 60 minutes that I'm paying $50 for. So $1 a minute, I can do that.
I think that being an entrepreneur definitely makes you think of life and time in a way that you don't think about it when you're on the clock.
Yes.
And whenever you talk about hiring a house cleaner, I kid you not, like my heart beats a little faster. One day that will be me. And that's what we talk about when I ask moms, what is it that you want coaching around? It's time management. It's I need more patience with my kids. I want to be able to schedule off to go to their play or whatever. I want more dates with my husband. It's always time centered. And I believe that we're not utilizing our time as we should because we think that we should be cleaning the house. That's just, we should be. Why wouldn't we? Why would we hire someone else to clean the house?
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about what you're giving up and what you could be creating and the money that you could literally be bringing into your business, into your home, I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like we have this in this country, especially among the population of women. And I'm not a feminist by any means, but I do feel like that women have this glorification of busy. And we feel
Absolutely.
like the more busy we are, then the more successful we'll be, or the more worthy we'll be. And that's just totally not the case. And so I read a book, which I really highly recommend. I don't read a lot of books because I read too many as a child. And so now I'm like burnout, but I do read a few. And one of the ones I actually read all the way through, it's a very short, thin paperback. It's called Breaking Busy. And
I was going to highlight my book, but never mind.
That's another one. But in this book, the author actually says that Moses was the first overworked executive. And she talks about how that is and how it's actually shown in the Bible, which I thought was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. He needed some help.
What?
I said he needed some help, and his father-in-law was like, hey, delegate this stuff, man.
Exactly. And that was the example she gave. And so I feel like, that kind of thing is that we feel like we have to fill up every minute of every day, and then we don't actually get anything done. Nothing is actually accomplished. And so one of the things that I did was when I did my 30-minute slots and all that, that was good for a while, but then I didn't have my office anymore. So then what do? And I don't want to go somewhere every Friday from 10 to 12 and just sit. And, I have other things I might need to do. So then I started giving myself Friday off. I don't book anything on Fridays, ever. And what I do on Fridays is catch up if I need to, or go to the spa and do the massage, or go out of town with my husband, or go to have lunch with my friend. Like Friday is my day. And it starts my weekend. It's one thing. And then I started saying, well, instead of me blocking 30-minute times with people, doing one-to-ones with people, which are like an hour, but then you put on travel and then it's like 3 hours,
Right.
Excuse me. I started doing Calendly. So you guys have heard of Calendly, I'm sure. It's amazing. And I have a thing on there on my website that says, let's chat. You get 15 minutes. And I put the ball in their court. I'm like, if you want to talk to me, you're going to book 15 minutes. Here's the link. I'll put it in a text to people. I'll put it in an email to people. I'll give it to them. Like, here's my card on my website. You can book a time. All the important people who are really interested, take the time, the 2 minutes, and book time with me on my calendar. Because Calendly books in with what you already have going on, I don't have to worry about overbooking myself. It's only 15 minutes. It's only a phone call. I buffer it with 15 minutes on either side. So if the phone call goes longer or we start earlier, whatever, I have time. And it has been the most successful thing that I've done, because I have booked more clients from 15-minute phone calls than I ever did with one-to-ones that were an hour and a half.
That's like laser sessions almost.
Yes.
Where they're like super quick, but they're also to the point because you only have 15
And
minutes.
I get them to tell me what their problems are. I can diagnose them, and I can say, here's what I can offer you. Do you want it or not? And sometimes they'll say, well, let me think about it. And then I have a follow-up process, and I only follow up with them up to 3 times, and then I let them go. So it's been very freeing to kind of let people put themselves in my calendar rather than me having to go, okay, when can I shove this person in? It's like, if I can't talk to you for a week and a half, some people are like, oh, great, good. I'm so busy this week anyway. Monday's fine. You know, like that's great for them. But some people will say, I booked a time on your calendar for 2 weeks from now. That's all that was left. But I really wanted to see if you had anything today. They'll email me directly. And I'll be like, oh yeah, I have some time around 3:30. Like, but then it's them really going, I have to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
Then I know they're really interested.
Right. They almost weed themselves out, but
exactly.
there's a word I was pre-qualified.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Okay. So tell us what you do today. Like if someone's booking you, what are they booking you for?
I actually create websites in a day. And I build an entire site from start to finish. Usually we'll start over if they already have a site, or we'll just start a new site if they don't have one. And it's just one day. It's an 8-hour process. I do take my clients to lunch, which I love. And we start in the morning from around 8, and then we end around 5 or 6. And if it's remote, then we literally work together all day via Skype.
In a day?
In one day.
One day.
Yeah.
So what are they coming with? Because are they coming with pictures, graphics?
Sometimes nothing. Sometimes literally nothing. I will make them write stuff. I'll make them write their bio. The only thing I can't do is take a headshot. Usually people have a picture they'll at least want to use for temporary purposes. We'll make the graphics together. We will, do all that stuff. But as far as like branding goes, you kind of have to have branding. That's really the only like pre-qualification I need. Somebody has to bring prerequisite. You have to bring branding to the website session. And so I do offer a branding in a day session, which is my favorite. I love them. And we sit together again for 8 hours and we come up with a logo. We talk about target market. We talk about unique niche. We talk about selling. How are you going to sell this? Who are you going to sell it to? What are some of the companies in your area that you can actually market to? And who are we marketing to? Professionals or residential or consumers? Like, we really figure all that out before we make the logo, because that's who it has to appeal to. And then we do the logo. We choose colors based on color psychology, font psychology, all that stuff. And then from there, that's like half the day. And then we create a business card that they can actually print. And I usually print them for them like that day. And then we also do like an ebook or some kind of ebook or something, checklist, whatnot, for them to put on their website, which we usually do the next day. That is like an opt-in that they'll have that someone can download for their email. So yeah, wow, I usually like to do branding and then a website second.
That's amazing. I was gonna say that's crazy, but that's amazing.
A lot of people think it's crazy.
Branded, I mean, yeah, but it's like good crazy, you know?
Yeah.
So we're branding in a day, we're making the website in a day. Yep. What else do you do in a day? 6
months of social media and 12 months of blogging, email drip campaigns, and e-commerce and membership websites. Those are each of those things is one individual day.
So a whole year.
Yeah, if you came to me like for 3 days, I could essentially brand you, give you a website, and give you a membership portion of your site in 3 days.
In 3 days.
Yeah.
Not 6 months.
No.
3 days.
Yep.
Okay, so if you need some branding, some social media posts,
yep.
Blog post, the email drip, is that like a funnel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we create the whole funnel,
So banging out a funnel, which you bring people in and then they kind of go through a series of emails and, different things are going to go to them.
But you need an opt-in in order to get them in a funnel. So that's what we do on the branding day. So you need the branding day.
So branding, so we got to start at the beginning, right?
You need the website, right? Yeah.
And do you have a set fee or does it depend?
It is actually a flat fee per day. I wanted to make it simple for people. I don't want it to be complicated for them or for me. So it's actually $1,500 a day. That's it. Whatever day you pick, how many ever days you pick, that's the fee.
$1,500 a day. Yeah. So there's no gimmicks. If you want a day or 3 days, it's $1,500 per day.
Per day. That's it.
Wow.
And they have to be consecutive.
They have to be?
They have to be consecutive, because if they're not, we lose time. And then we have to recap. And we just lose so much. Like, I could spend an hour recapping wait, what were we doing? How are we thinking? What was our thought process? Why did we do that? You know, so we do it consecutive. So it's like boom, 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 done.
What I call you, the time ninja. You have it down, girl. I love it.
I try.
And you have it down and you have peace. Like there's a difference between people who like have it down and they're like grumpy and you're like, no, I have completely structured my life and I'm happy.
And it's not rigid.
If I'm not happy, I restructure.
And yes, and it's not rigid. It is definitely fluid. Things happen all the time. Life happens, flat tire, like, I mean, just all the stuff, right?
Right.
And so these things are my ideal goals, and I do usually hit them, but it's definitely something that is not going to be blown up just because, like, if I have to schedule a client on a Friday, sometimes I do 3-day sessions. It's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I lose my Friday,
right?
But that's okay because I've got a client. I'm working with a client, or you know, I have to do a ton of administrative stuff on a Friday. I don't get to go out and have fun and play around. That's part of life. That's part of my business. I have to do it. So I might throw a luncheon with my mom, but then I'm doing emails, doing contracts. Like that's what I got to do, right? Payroll, all that stuff. But it's definitely like ideal. This thing happens that Friday's my day off or whatever. Those things are all ideals, but sometimes they don't always fit the way I want them. But that's okay. Like it's because I know that structure is there. I have that structure to fall back on. Like, okay, that messed up today. Tomorrow, next week, whatever, it's going to come, like we're going back to it. You know, it's not like something that I'm going to lose just because one day gets messed up.
Right. So then are you a fan of calendar blocking? Or do you have
I'm really bad at that. I'm really bad at it. Okay. I actually am writing a book right now, and my writing coach I'm working with, she's a ghostwriter. She's like, you have to put it on your calendar or you won't do it. And I was like, yeah. So I haven't done that yet, and I have literally not touched my book since December. So, so it's really sad, I know. So I'm not perfect at those kind of things. I think I'm better at managing people in time blocks. So like telling people these are the boundaries and this is when this happens. But if I have a good 15, 20 minutes to an hour in my schedule, like this morning before I talked to you, I was watching Netflix. That's what I was doing.
Yes.
I was like, I don't have enough time to do payroll, but I have enough time to watch Manifest. So, just saying.
On Facebook, there's a meme that says, I am so busy. And then it's like, but what kind of cheese am I? Let me take this quiz. I mean, you just get lost in social media.
Yeah.
So then, okay. And are you a mom, Elizabeth? I feel like I know this.
I am not. No.
You're not a mom.
No.
So you don't have any kids in the house?
No, I'm a dog mom though.
Why did I think you had children running around? Okay.
No.
All right. So, but you can still answer this question.
As a different superwoman.
Yes, right. Absolutely. You are a superwoman. My question is, because like a lot of us are moms and we're crazy busy, or at least we think we are. And so that's kind of where the book I was holding up is talking about, is I Know How She Does It by Laura Vanderkam. And it talks about how we really over speak about how busy we are because we're really not working as much as we say we are, because we're taking long lunches and we're taking kids to the dentist and we just came in late one day. And so I'm wondering, I know your parents at first were kind of like, what is she doing? Is she going to be okay? They're very worried about you in a good, loving way. We have spouses that are worried about us. We have parents that are saying, honey, just go get a job, work that 9 to 5 until you're 65, get retirement. And like, what are you doing? Why are you stressing? And we have spouses that are sometimes sacrificing time with us, or money is going into a business that's not always bringing it back in. So you just seem to really effortlessly flow from one thing to the next. What do you say to a woman that's almost where you were in the whole, like, hey, can I come teach in your computer lab? Like, how do you get going? And where was that confidence that this is going to work and I'm going to do well for myself?
So definitely from my parents, they did encourage me, but they were, like you said, worried, like, oh, is this going to work out? You sure? Yeah. And I actually did have a part-time job at the beginning of my business. Wasn't full-time for 12 years. Like that's definitely not been the case. And I was like, okay, I'll get, I went full-time by myself for 1 year in an apartment by myself, single person, and I pretty much ate ramen noodle every day. So it was a bad year, and I was always at home. I was never, doing anything fun, and I was just working all the time, but I wasn't working because I didn't have enough work. And so my parents were like, you need to do something else. You either need to move back home or find a roommate or do something, because you cannot. And they weren't giving me money or anything. Like, I was literally trying to sustain on the pennies that I had. And they were like, you can't do this. And because they kind of were trying to help me with my finances. And I was like, I don't think I have enough money, And they said, okay, well, you need to do something. So I found a roommate, and I lived with her for a year. So we were splitting that part. I had the part-time job, and I was like, told the part-time job, I was like, look, I can work 3 days a week. That's all I can do, because I have a business and I have to do that 3 days a week, which was Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Mm-hmm. And I did. That's what I did. And then I worked at night as well, like for the business, doing classes. And it took me about a year to get that kind of under my belt. And at that point, I met my husband, so I moved in with him. We got married, we moved in, and he was working a full-time job. And then I went down to 2 days because my business was doing so well. I was like, I need another day. I'm like so busy, I can't even see straight. So I said, fine, 2 days job. I'm only giving you 2 days. They said, oh, please stay. And I was like, I'll stay for 2 days. And they said, okay, fine, you can have 2 days. So I was working my business 4 days a week and working there 2 days. And then it got to the point where I was like, I can't do all of this. I'm making more money in my business than I'm making at this job. I was getting like $60 a day. That's like nothing. And I thought, for $60, I can take the day, like not go, right? So I can work my business instead. So I did that, and it was a little bit of a struggle. Like, you don't realize, you think you're good, and then you don't realize like how much you actually are losing. That $60 could have come in really handy a couple times.
Yeah, that stability.
Right. And so I thought, okay, but I can do it. So then I finally got to the point where I was actually making my salary plus my husband's salary, and he was working full time, and he hated his job. And this is a couple years down the road into us being married. And then he came on and worked with me full time. So we were both in the business. The business was supporting both of us and our lifestyle, which was beans and weenies, small apartment. But it was supporting us, and it did that for 5 years. We worked together for 5 years. He did the computer house calls. I taught him how to do that. I trained him. And then I did the website stuff. I started to bring more of that kind of old thing that I used to do back into the business for business owners. And we did that for 5 years. And then we sold the house call business to another individual. And I was like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And he's like, I want to do my own thing. So he went and got another full-time job, and now I'm just doing this by myself. So it's been like a very interesting thing. And people always were like, oh, you're so smart. You're going to be a millionaire by the time you're 30 and all this stuff. I don't want to be a millionaire. That was never the plan. Like, I don't want to pay the taxes. Like, that is just too much. So, but like, I that was never the plan. This was a lifestyle business and always would be. It was, what do I need right now? And how can I make money doing that? Right. How can I make money in this business for me, for my family right now? For planning for our future, for putting away for retirement, whatever it was, planning for colleges for kids, whatever, all that stuff, house, what do I need right this minute to make those things happen? But I'm never going to sell this business and have it be some multi-millionaire thing where I have this huge team, and that was never my goal. Now that's one of my friend's goals. She wants to do that. She wants to pass this business on to her generations and generations. I'm like, you go, girl, you build it totally differently than I did. But the way that I'm doing this, the way that I meant to do it, it was never meant to be anything but a lifestyle business, which means I can pay my bills, I can pay the business's bills, and I can have some left over to either have fun or save, which I'm bad at one of them. But
So to a woman that's like, your advice is simply to find out what makes money right now and do that thing. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I think so. And like the busy part and like the encouragement part is, my husband really did encourage me. He was always like, you can do this. If anybody can do it, you can. There's nobody else that I know that could do it. And I would always get to that point where I was like, oh, I can't anymore, But the main thing was to find that support system, whether it's your family, a friend, some girlfriends, another networking group, where those people are going to go, I've been there, or I am there, and we're going to get through it together. because I had my business through the recession. That was super tough. We almost lost the business and everything else we owned because we got to that point where we had like living on credit cards, which was ridiculously horrible. And I will never do that again. But it was something that had to happen, and I almost lost the business. And a lot of people did lose their businesses. But that perseverance to stick to it and to kind of like force through those things. But I couldn't have done it without my family at least being encouraging. And one thing you said about your parents saying like, oh, why are you so stressed? Why are you just making yourself crazy? Like, just go get a job. And the main thing I want to say about that is actually, I realized at one point that my husband mostly saw the me crazy part, but he was here all the time with me. So he also saw the, oh my gosh, I got this client, right? Like he saw the happy things that were like so exciting to me because he was always here. My parents, on the other hand, I would see them on the weekend. I would be like, I have 6 contracts. I have 3 websites. And they would say something. I'd be like, ah! And they would only see the crazy. And that's when they would say, well, you need to just get a job or make yourself not crazy. But that's because I only let them see the stressed part. So then I started like, I would like text my mom, oh my gosh, I just got this client. It's so exciting. Or I just landed this speaking gig or like whatever. And so then she would see all the good things too. So when I would tell my husband, I just got this client, I would text him, I would also text my mom. So that they would also see like, oh, this isn't all bad. You know, she's not totally insane. You know, she actually is happy and she is doing things she loves. But I had to be really conscious of letting them know that, even if it was my husband, making sure I tell him, hey, I got a client. Hey, we just made this much money. Or telling my parents the good parts, not just the I'm so stressed parts, because that's usually what your family hears because you feel comfortable telling them all the crap.
Right. Yeah, that sounds like relationships. You know, like when you're mad at your husband and you call your girlfriend like, oh, guess what he did?
Right. And she's like, he sounds horrible.
Yeah, right. And it's like, this guy's the worst. And it's like, but no, he's great. I'm just sharing. That's the time I need to vent.
Right.
So that is really good because we, especially sometimes you don't share with anybody because, you know, it's your dream and it's your baby and you're sensitive about it and you don't want their opinions. And I have found that being able to say, hey, guys, I'm kind of sensitive about this, but this is my thing. And you know, just kind of once you keep going, pretty soon, I know my mom was like, hey, coach, at one point, and I was like, Mom, thank you. Thanks for calling me that. That's my dream. That's what, you know, that's what I love doing. So no, that's really good because we hear the opposite. Don't tell everybody your business. Do it. You know, your family is not going to support you, and you know, it's going to be other people that don't know you. But a lot of times, I think other people get more of us than our families do. And so they get to see the gifting in a whole nother light, and our family members see us stressing and struggling, and they love us, and it's a love thing.
Yeah, and then like you go to a business meeting and you're you know, you're like, oh, and my company did this year, and we did this amazing thing, and we have these clients, and everybody sees all the happy part of it because you're trying to put on that, you know, good first impression. And then your family, you're like, oh my gosh, if I have to go to another business meeting, I'm just gonna die.
Yes, don't you show like the 2 different faces? That is such a good point. That is crazy. Okay, so we got to start being real and showing a little bit to everybody. You know, even when we're getting those awards, like, man, this was a tough year. But because of the family support and the this and that, that's how I got through. It's really about being authentic. So we've learned so much from you, Elizabeth. You and I are buddies. When you become the multimillionaire that you don't want to be, the extra, just send it right over to me. I'll take it.
I'll just call myself the reluctant millionaire. That's
I know you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. But you just have so much. You have so much life. You have so much wisdom, and you're totally a go-getter. You're a problem solver, which I love. And I am just so fortunate that we swiped right on each other on Shipper, and now we're dating. This is great. I
know, right?
We're business daters. I don't know, business relationship. But no, for real. No, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate everything that you've shared. We have learned, guys, to persevere to be authentic about how we share, both with our family and with our business colleagues. We've learned to network and be consistent about it. And with Elizabeth, there's no gimmicks. She's gonna do everything that she said she's gonna do. She's gonna be on time, and she's gonna make sure that she's giving you a quality product. She's not overcharging you because she can. She's not undercharging you because she knows her worth. And as women, it's so important that we know what we're worth and we know the value of our time. And that way we're not constantly resenting doing this when we really wanted to do that, or playing 500 games with our kids out of guilt, and we know we really should have been working. So it goes all the way around. It's like a wheel, you know. If one part is deflated, it's going to be a bumpy ride. And so we just want to make sure that we have a balanced life and that we're constantly looking at something and assessing it and restructuring it. Who said it had to be the way that it is? You can change it at any given moment. So Elizabeth she's changed so many times. She's had so many businesses. And I know that we're going to hear great things from her in the future. So how can they find you, Elizabeth?
You can go to elizabethpampalone.com. And I have a lot of stuff on there. And just like the cobbler's son that has no shoes, my website's kind of a mess. But I try to keep it pretty consistent. And so you can definitely find all my pricing on there and all my information. And then you can book a 15-minute call with me, because I would love to just, chat with you guys and hear more about what you guys are doing. And I did want to leave you guys with a couple of things to try. And that would be the time, looking at your calendar for a month, letting it go a whole month with no change, and seeing where you actually received from those meetings you've had. And then if you do hire a house cleaner, look at the time that it takes you to actually clean your own house. So for me, it was 3 hours, because I have a really small house. And so for 3 hours, it was all that cleaning, not laundry, because I still want to do my own laundry. But for 3 hours, it was me cleaning the house. And so instead of that 3 hours there, while the person was here for an hour and a half, I actually would work while they were here, on my computer. And then another hour would go to having lunch with my mom or something. And then another hour would go to a date with my husband. So splitting up that time so that you're not just, I have 3 more hours to work, and giving to each of your balances so that you are kind of, balanced into all this things.
That's good. I like that you said that. So it's not just 3 hours of working. It's an hour here, an hour there, and an hour there, or something like that.
Right.
Mixing and matching it and really giving to, that is genius. She's a genius and the networking queen. Thank you, Elizabeth. I will definitely put the links down below, guys, to find her. Elizabeth is available for branding sessions and creating your website, and also getting 6 months of Instagram posts and 12 months of blog posts.
Any social media. It's any
social media. So social media, so not just Instagram. So she's available to definitely be a resource to you all. Definitely share her information with everyone. Elizabeth, we so appreciate you for being a part of the preset. Guys, next month on March 17th, we're going to hear from Rachel Bunn, who is also in the web space, but she's going to be coming from a little bit of a different angle. So make sure that you're sharing the preset with everybody and show Elizabeth some love on her social media as well. All right. Thank you, guys. Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.